Hello, I'm TJ Kirk with Cinema for Cynics. Since I am a much bigger fan of television as a medium than Paul is, I've elected to take on TV review duties on this channel. So does this mean I will never review feature films? No. Does it mean Paul will never review a TV show? No. It simply means that he will primarily focus on movies and I will primarily focus on television. So today we will be taking a look at John Adams, a 7-part miniseries produced in 2008 by HBO and directed by Tom Hooper, who went on to win a Best Director Oscar 2 years later for The King's Speech. The amazingly talented Paul Giamatti plays the titular character, the second president of the United States of America, and he does so flawlessly. He juggles the contradictions of Adams in a way that adds to the richness of the portrayal rather than muddying it into incomprehensibility or incoherence as a lesser actor might have. Without Giamatti at the helm, the series might not have worked. Most of the supporting cast is also excellent. Laura Linney does an admirable job playing Adams's opinionated and wise wife, Abigail. Stephen Dillane is deeply compelling as the brooding dreamer, Thomas Jefferson. Tom Wilkinson is a total treat to watch as the hedonistic and Machiavellian Benjamin Franklin. Rufus Sewell does a fine job as Alexander Hamilton, but he doesn't really stand out. David Morse's George Washington failed to connect with me, but he certainly had the biggest shoes to fill. Perhaps I cling a bit too strongly to my own mythologized conceptions of who Washington was. Maybe I'm just too connected to that to accept a flawed human portrayal of him. And even though he had only one scene in the entire series, Tom Hollander really stood out to me as the vacant-eyed despot, King George III. But once again, I must stress that the weight of this show was squarely on Paul Giamatti's shoulders, and he pulled it off in a performance that won him a richly deserved Emmy for Outstanding Actor in a Miniseries or Movie. Not that I really give a flying fuck about the Emmys, and nor should you. The series chronicles the life of Adams from 1770, when he was a defense lawyer for the British soldiers who gunned down an angry mob at the Boston Massacre, which he successfully defended them, to his death on July 4th, 50-year anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, or the ratification of it, or something. That was in 1826. He was 90 years old. He's shown to be a man obsessed with his reputation, vain to the point of folly, short, fat, stern, yet also passionate, determined, and prone to bold action rather than caution, usually anyway. Most of what both Histories and Giamatti's Adams accomplishes, he accomplishes primarily through force of will, force of argument, and a burning desire to prove his perhaps exaggerated sense of his own greatness to the world. And I say perhaps exaggerated because it's not immediately evident in a lot of ways, yet you can't deny his accomplishments. Now, he's not always an easy character to like, but I do ultimately like him. He lacks the wit and guile and supreme genius of many of the more notable founders, but he made up for it in a sheer tenacious bluntness. He was truly an indefatigable man who, even at his lowest point, never gave in to malaise. And believe me, the series does not shy away from showing us the low points of Adams's life and career, most notably his complete and utter failure as a diplomat to France during the American Revolution. An entire episode is dedicated to that, and his failure is so thorough that by the end of the episode, you feel like you too have suffered a crushing defeat. I was kind of depressed afterwards, like, oh man, even a great man like John Adams could have this resounding failure on his resume. If I must offer some criticisms, probably the biggest problem I had is that I sometimes found myself confused by the passage of time in the miniseries. There's a lot of major time jumps that happen, And they never really explain it through the titles. There's never like a, London 1773 or whatever the hell. You're left to puzzle it out for yourself, just how much time has passed between different scenes, using context clues and the delineations between different vast swaths of time are not always clear. In fact, they're pretty much never clear. So it can take you out of the story a little bit when instead of focusing on the characters and their actions, you're busy trying to figure out how much time has passed between events and get a firm grasp on the chronology of this stuff. I mean, it's not like a Quentin Tarantino movie where it's told out of order or something, but there's still these very distracting time jumps, and there's not much to tell you when they've happened other than just things are different now, and it's like, okay, what happened? Near the end of the miniseries, an elderly Adams is shown the famous painting, Signing of the United States Declaration of Independence, by its artist, John Trumbull, and he proceeds to trash both the painting and its painter for the historical inaccuracy of the painting. Adams remarks towards the end of his rant against the painter's inaccurate depiction with no shortage of sorrow that he considers the true history of the revolution to be lost forever. Now, the historical Adams did, in fact, take issue with John Trumbull's painting, though he expressed it far more politely and in a letter rather than a face-to-face meeting. So I realized that the point of this scene was for the miniseries to criticize itself, to remind us that what we are watching is not history, but drama. That as brilliant as Paul Giamatti is as John Adams, he is not John Adams. We will never truly know John Adams or Washington, Jefferson, Franklin, any of them. A TV drama must take artistic license, partly to make the narrative work, and partly because much of the truth truly is lost in the sands of time. I think it speaks well of the John Adams miniseries that it's such a brilliant series that it even criticizes itself more effectively than could any outside critic. I give it a hearty recommendation, though I will caution those of you who are bothered by a slow pace that this series is not often a pulse pounder. This will require patient and careful viewing to truly appreciate. If you're looking for a lighter, more escapist fare, John Adams is probably not what you seek. But if you're in the mood for a dense character study full of great performances and rousing political and personal drama, you can't do much better than John Adams. I give it a 9 out of 10.